Welcome to the Deconstructing Consent podcast, a companion show to our Substack page, eliascepeda.substack.com. I am Elias Cepeda. In this show, we'll speak with writers, journalists, academics, and activists who I find essential and interesting. We're so happy that our first guest is Aaron Thorpe. Aaron is one of the best follows you could ever choose on Twitter. He's hilarious, he's informative, he's kind when talking to and about people not in power, and he's courageous. He also recently got permanently banned from Twitter. Then, somehow, some way, Aaron got reinstated. We'll talk about that opaque process, reflect on big tech companies having an outsized influence on journalists and commentators' work, Aaron's life, his new projects, and the cruel American healthcare system. Aaron spoke to us from his hospital bed where he's unfortunately had to spend far too much time recently after nearly being killed in an automobile accident. He's battling through, but has over $100,000 in medical debt, needs a new car, but he still keeps putting content out there for the people. So if you're able, I am asking you to consider checking out his work and seeing if you can contribute to make it possible and help him make ends meet. Aaron has a fantastic new show of his own that he hosts. It's called A Time of Monsters podcast. You could find it at Atom_pod. That's ATOM_POD. And also at patreon.com/AtomPod. Aaron is also a co-host of the Trillbillies podcast, which is fantastic. You can find them on Twitter at the Trillbillies. That's two L's in Trill and two L's in Billies, IES. Aaron is also going to begin writing for Spooky Mag. You can find Spooky Mag at SPOOKYMAGLOL on Twitter. And again, if you're able, I'd encourage you to see how you can contribute to Aaron's ability to make ends meet in this acutely rough situation he's going through. Hey, you could find him on Venmo and Cash App at Poseidist Trap God, and that has a particular spelling. It's POSADISTTRAPGD. So as I said, during this conversation, Aaron is in his hospital bed. I recorded it at home on my end with cars zooming by outside, a kitten running around, and two dogs nearby. That's how I'm recording this intro as well. This isn't the way I've recorded for podcasts in the past, but things are weird this year. So I'm still working on setting stuff up at home so future episodes have better sound quality. We begin the episode a few minutes into the conversation with Aaron, talking about being an independent media worker, and then he gets into his crazy Twitter death sentence and his sudden digital resurrection. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Please like, subscribe, and share if you do. What we can come by easily can easily be lost, but if it's something that we come by with great difficulty and effort, we can hold on to it a bit more. And I think it's kind of similar. Like if you build your own audience and just start off on your own, you're completely independent. Yeah, like you may start off just, it may start and end just screaming into a void, but whatever you get is yours, and whatever message you're able to put out there unadulterated, unfiltered, like you say, it is yours. Whereas like if, when I speak from personal experience, if you're given a platform for your work, but it's mediated by these, in this case, this age of corporate conglomerates, by corporations, it's cool because your reach is like instantly large, but also it can be taken away the second you start talking about things that they don't want you to be talking about. And so, so it's an interesting thing. And I feel like there's a conversation I want to have that too about these platforms themselves, like Twitter, right? Because even when we're independent, we're still using servers, usually, at least me, that are attached to these giant corporate, and they're maybe not media outlets, or they don't want to be thought of as media outlets, but Google, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, there's still something there where if push comes to shove, our voices can be taken away. And there is, and let's go to that. So a few days ago, what's the scene when you discover that you've been permanently banned from Twitter? Where were you? What were you doing? What's going through your mind when you see this?
So man, as people know, if they don't know, I got in a car accident maybe like 3 weeks ago, and I've been in and out of the hospital. This is my second time back into the hospital, and I've been here for over a week. So Twitter has been pretty much an outlet for me to express frustration. Comedy as usual. People know I have I guess I don't know, maybe a sick sense of humor. It's just like an outlet for me, right? Kind of an escape. And I'm very abrasive on Twitter. It can be. So I call somebody a coon. And apparently I didn't get reported by the person, but I got flagged, I guess, in some algorithm for hateful conduct. So as soon as I hit send tweet, like I said, I didn't even call the person a coon. I don't even think they were in the mentions. Actually, they were in the mentions, but it was a comment directed to somebody else that follows me, like a mutual. And I was like, well, coon's gonna coon. And I immediately hit send tweet and got banned. And I got an email, and it was different from the usual kind of emails that I get, because I knew that there was no recourse of action. Like usually, if I get suspended from Twitter, it says you get you get an email and you try to log in. It says you got 7 days, right? And there's like a countdown, And I didn't get any of that. It wouldn't let me log in. It kept telling me go to Twitter.com to make an appeal, and that's what I did, man. I got banned, and immediately I freaked out because I use that. Yes, I'm addicted to Twitter, but I also use it for for self-employment. I use it for my podcast, to get interviews with my mutuals, journalists that I want to talk to, academics, activists that I want to speak to. And I don't have their number or emails. It's probably something I should do after this. But yeah, I made an appeal that I use it for work, and especially during this difficult time of quarantine or the pandemic. It's the only way that I can communicate, for future opportunities. And usually those appeals they don't really work. I mean, I don't think that I don't know how that review board goes, but usually 99, I think, percent. I don't want to give an exact number, but let's just say 99% of accounts that are suspended permanently for hateful conduct don't get reinstated. So yeah, man, people were just kind of freaking out, and Glenn Greenwald, who is a personal friend of mine, actually made, I guess, on his timeline, made an appeal to Jack, the CEO of Twitter, explaining that I'm in not only, is it a pandemic, but I'm also in a hospital, healing from this accident. And it's just a way for me to communicate with people and feel like a part of something. So yeah, man, I got banned for a day, and I guess I don't know if you want to ask me any questions. I can tell you how I got reinstated, but yeah, I was banned for not even a full day, but a couple hours before I came back on.
And I do want to get into that. I want to thank you for explaining that. I want to pause here for a moment, though, on the stuff you were saying. Let's go. This may seem, believe me, I'm not trying to fan the flames of a Twitter beef, but let's for the so you talked about what you wrote, and and you're replying to mentions and stuff. So at any point jump in, correct me if I'm wrong. But you're a black dude, and you wrote that.
People don't know.
Right, yeah. So this is I mean I feel maybe some people I feel that's pertinent, right? It's pertinent where I'm going. The were you referring to another black person?
Yes.
And okay, cool. So say that and talk a little bit about, let's get beyond for a second the tag itself, the word coon itself. What, when you say that, as a black dude talking to another black person in this context or any context you want to describe, what are you talking about, Aaron? What are you saying for people that may not understand it, or even for me? I don't know what's in your mind, right? Let's talk about what I think there's. I suspect there's something significant you were trying to say there. Let's talk about that. What were you meaning by that?
There are terms in the Oreo, which is of African American vernacular. My mom, who's from Jamaica, says roast breadfruit. because breadfruit is it's like a fruit on a tree, and it's brown on the inside and white. It's brown on the outside, sorry, and white on the inside. And what essentially what it means, man, is conformity to white supremacy, right? And I don't mean white supremacy as in like the Klan, right, or like outward fascism. I'm just talking about white supremacy, like white hegemony, right, like white culture, right, like living up to this white ideal, and sort of abandoning what I feel is like the radical black tradition. And the reason why I call this person a coon, and I wish I knew the historical context for it. I'm sure people can look it up if they wanted to. But I don't know the historical context for it. But the reason why I call this dude a coon is because it was this black rose emoji dude. And rose emojis, man, I'm telling people they're sus as fuck. Like, you're getting a lot of fucking people that call themselves democratic socialists, which fine, whatever. I'm a communist, but whatever. You can, I don't know. Like, if you think that the aims that we want to achieve can be, succeeded, facilitated through like electoralism and democracy, like the way we think of it under bourgeois liberalism, whatever, man. If you think that's the way it's gonna go, sure. I don't think that's how it's gonna happen. Historically, that's not how it's happening. But sure, whatever. But he was basically saying that the left didn't stick with Hillary in 2016. Like, we didn't vote for her overwhelmingly. Not even black people, but the left broadly, which is false, right? Like, progressives overwhelmingly, 90%, voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016, right? It was just people that, people who, I guess, did not feel inspired or galvanized or motivated enough to come out and vote for Hillary Clinton at a higher rate than Donald Trump. And, he just had all these talking points like that were just just not even wrong, but also just very very just sort of suckling off of the teat of white liberalism, that I find a lot of rose emojis do. And I don't, if you're rocking a rose emoji out there, man, I'm making a political distinction. I'm making a philosophical and theoretical distinction in terms of how to achieve certain aims, right? We're seeing the same thing going on with this whole Medicare for all, Jimmy Dore, blah blah, all that shit. But I'm just talking about just the way you envision the world that we all want happening, right? Which I don't think that. I tweeted this up the other day that, man, we all want the same things, but I actually don't think that we all want the same things, right? And I think that's mediated by how people reflect on events, and communicate ideas. And this guy was just basically caping for the white man, not even the white man, but he was caping for white liberalism, saying a lot of things that you hear white liberals say, right? And that's why I called him a fucking coon, because you're being a fucking coon, you're being an Uncle Tom, you're saying shit that's just an abandonment of not even just the socialist, right, or communist tradition, but the radical black tradition, right? Who people like Cornel West, thank God, are still upholding today in this country. So yeah, he deserved it. It was totally worth it. It was worth it. I hope that answered that.
It does. No, I think that, I mean, it does for me, and I think I wanted to give you a chance to talk about it because I think there's sometimes when we talk about, or at least when corporations talk about or discourse influenced unduly by corporate influence, let's say, as let's talk about social media, things, social media bans, suspensions for so-called hate speech. When we talk about things like hate speech within that context, I think the corporate narrative dominates, and then the corporate conception of diversity or of hate speech dominates, and I think in my view that often doesn't go past certain buzzwords or certain. I don't want to be. I don't want to say certain words, right? I'm not going to say, and I'm not here to say that words don't have meaning or have power.
Exactly.
I'm not.
What I said wasn't wrong or to be offensive.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not saying it's not, exactly. I'm not saying it's not a slur. I'm not saying it's not quote unquote. Right. I'm not saying it's not quote unquote offensive. But there is always context and to treat, for example, the violently racist ideas theories, just statements that don't use slurs, but that are
Yes.
to treat those that come on Twitter, let's say, from people with the most power in the world, like the president of
Donald
the United
fucking
States.
Trump.
Exactly. To treat that differently than an individual, young man, activist, podcast host, with a great following in Georgia, talking to another black person. I think that's like the epitome of, in my very subjective view, the epitome of hollow corporate, like a feigned concern about people of color, marginalized
Yes.
groups. They're
Yes.
allowed to have the most hateful ideas propagated that don't use a certain word, and they don't get suspended or taken down because they come from people in power.
Exactly.
Uh,
It's
you
purely
know,
aesthetic.
exactly. That's what I'm getting at, right? It's an aesthetic. It's an aesthetic, or like an affect of caring. It seems to me, but sounds like you agree.
It's actually a tenet of fascism, the
Mm,
aestheticization of politics,
mm.
right? Right, which I think that we live in. When I say fascism, I mean, people should know. I'm not talking about like Nazi Germany. I'm talking about the fact that the United States, the current society that we live in, is a fascistic society, right? Like it just fucking is. Capitalist, like liberal bourgeois society is fascistic, and there's this aestheticization of politics that goes beyond any sort of like deeper dive into words, into symbols, right? And seems to uphold, like, again, a status quo where Donald Trump can incite white supremacist violence, which we see like the effect of, like, QAnon and, this fucking militiamen who were threatening to kidnap, like, what's her name, Gretchen Whitmore,
Yeah, the governor of
the
Michigan.
governor of Michigan. You know what I mean? Like, these people who actually like attempt or do commit acts of like racial violence or fascistic violence and get away with it. And I call somebody a coon and I get banned. Donald Trump, again, not that I really give a fuck about the election, but okay, Donald Trump contests, because it's all illegitimate anyway, right? But fine, Donald Trump contests the results of the election, and all he gets from Twitter is like a warning that his like claims have been disputed, right? Instead of having his account like deactivated. Like, it's just like fucking insane to me, right? Like, I have 37,000 followers. This dude has like tens of millions, right? So there's that power imbalance there, that's reminiscent of living in a fascistic society that actually like cannot approach politics beyond any sort of symbolic meaning, because then it would require like not just an acknowledgement but a shift in power, right? And the ruling class, like, is unwilling to do that, right? So yeah, man, that shit really pissed me off. It really did piss me off that I got banned for that. Which luckily I got unbanned, which we can talk about. But yeah,
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that, and it justifiably upset you, and I think it upset a lot of people, as far as I can tell, on Twitter as well, followers of yours. And it was a bit like, I think you played it off as you often do with some very serious issues, with still a lot of on like your backup account, with a lot of aplomb and a lot of comic relief, and so did others and stuff, and so you're good at doing that. But I think there was a lot of justifiable rage there, and I like you talking. And this is not only a subject for its own episode, or its conversation, or story, but a conversation or a topic for its own, like, course or career. But talking about fascism in America, it's very interesting to me, because I would agree with you, and I spent a lot of time thinking about the last couple of years, and now starting to write more and more, but most importantly read and listen to people, that scholars and journalists, who point out the ways in which the United States has always always been what we would later come to term fascistic. If not only in politics, which I think there's a distinction that Jason Stanley, this philosopher of language, and last few years a scholar of fascism, that he makes between fascist politics and fascistic governance, and I think they are different. But not only in the politics, not only in the politics of what we do and the language we use and stuff, but also in fact for many people, we've been a fascistic nation in terms of how we govern. Not every that would shock a lot of people, but it might not shock indigenous people, or it might not shock black folk. That to hear that America for some has always been what would become fascistic later, and historians kind of hate when that term is supposedly stretched and say, well, no, fascism is a specific word from a specific country with a specific country, and
we're only talking about 1930s Germany.
Yeah, and it's like
right? We're only talking about the Holocaust.
Exactly.
It's very limited.
It is limited, and I think it takes. I would argue it takes history as a discipline outside of the realm of things that are useful. If you're not going to learn from history, it's silly, and it also dehistoricizes. To be honest with you, because I mean, let's for example, Germany, like 1920s, 30s, Germany. Adolf Hitler. This is very public. He quite publicly in Mein Kampf in his memoir, he talked about his inspiration for race laws being from the United States, from Jim Crow United States. So to act as though fascism is this exogenous European import or export, I should say, to the rest of the world, or that it lived and died in a certain finite period of time is silly, and it ignores the ways in which the United States had a big impact on what would be known as fascism in Europe. In actual politics and an actual fact, right? So and I've been thinking about that a lot and writing about it a little bit. But I really think this is something I hadn't thought about much. The context you're bringing up is that the liberal establishment that runs companies and so and organizations like Twitter, who finally came around to being concerned enough about Donald Trump and the fascistic tendencies, and I do think Donald Trump had it was fascistic or is fascistic and used those politics and tried as much as he could to have authoritarian and specifically fascistic governance. Though I do think that language has been appropriated by the liberals again to
Exactly. It makes him seem unique.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's right. That's right.
As if Bush,
That's right.
fucking got us into 2 illegal wars. Wasn't a fascist. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Like it's so that's exactly right. It makes him look unique, which is dangerous, and it ignores the system that would create a Donald Trump. And I think no, exactly. But they talking about the ways in which this establishment, this in big tech, for example, which might overwhelmingly vote Democratic or whatever, for looking at the amount of employees or and executives and stuff. I think a lot of Silicon Valley probably votes for people like Barack Obama and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, probably. Maybe not all of them. Peter Thiel, who knows how that guy votes, but probably for Trump. But a lot of them. But the tech structure that we celebrate as liberatory and emancipatory and all this stuff. And democratic is as undemocratic as any structure or entities that we have, and really even a bit more so because they seem a bit more opaque. Like you're talking about emailing and doing appealing to a board of an unknown amount of people, and who you don't know who you're appealing to. That's downright Orwellian. It's quite bizarre, and it must have felt really strange to you to have to do that. Had you, Aaron, had to write these types of emails before? Had you been suspended temporarily before?
I had been suspended temporarily before, but I got that countdown of you have 7 days or you have not as many days, and I knew that even writing this email, I knew that okay, I tried to imagine who was going to see this, right? I tried to make an appeal to emotion, right? Almost pleading, yo, this is this is the medium that I use to do my work as someone who is self-employed, for a minute, even sort of giving myself a shred of hope and imagination that somebody would be reading that and feel for me. But as you said, these people are I don't mean to use this term lightly, they're corporate overlords, right? Like this, I don't. There's not a Democratic. I'm sure there's not a Democratic review board where people just go around and look at these tweets and decide like which one is hateful speech, which one is hateful conduct. Like I'm pretty sure it's just an algorithm, you know. And I'd be very interested to know, based on the amount of like white supremacist, like white nationalist content that's peddled online on Twitter, right? And I understand that some of these people have to go to platforms or start platforms like Parler, right? Because like Twitter is like increasingly trying to crack down. But just based on like the demographic makeup, right, of these like tech companies, I'm very interested to know like how do they decide what's hate speech and what isn't, right? Because if like not just Donald Trump, but if somebody like how am I trying to think about? But any of these like conservative like even elected officials, right? Republicans, and the language that they peddle in sometimes is like, yo, that's like inciting like hate speech, like racialized hate speech. And you're a public like official with like a check mark. You're a verified account.
Right.
And then no one is like like upset about this shit, man. But I use the word coon, and it's like it's a fucking problem. Somebody uses the word cunt, which these are offensive terms, but right. I use it because it is offensive. Like I'm not fucking under any illusion that it's not a slur. Like I use it because it's a fucking slur, but it's a slur that I feel comfortable using, right? Right. I don't know people though. I don't give a fuck. People can't speak that. I don't give a fuck. Like I'm black. I can fucking say that shit if I want to, But it's all about context, right? It's like that's where the power relation, the power imbalance lies, right? I'm a black dude called another black dude a fucking coon for good reason, right? I don't need like somebody else online like being Islamophobic or being transphobic, homophobic, right? Right. Like so yeah, man, it's very, as you said, like the Silicon Valley sort of and the internet was from the start of that, just generally when it first started, like democratizing, right? Like it was like the modern day symposium, and it's fucking not just because it's run by like mostly white men, because it's run by capital, right? So it can be democratizing, right? And that's a fucking problem, man. I realize that as a communist on Twitter, it's a fucking problem, dude. It's not really a platform that's conducive towards our ends, but here I am fucking on it.
Yeah, no, right. Like you've got even a communist discourse is going to be and distribution of that speech is going to be mediated by capital by necessity at this term, and it's crazy. It's you spoke about trying to get the letter and the appeal to get unsuspended, to unbanned, really, right? That and it sounds like you were being very tactical and ultimately efficacious, right? With that appeal, trying to appeal to an emotion and talking about how, like you were talking about your life circumstances, your career circumstances.
Yeah.
That is very striking to me, because what I'm not hearing is a lot of the discussion that we're having, which is let's talk about this issue on its merits. I want to, like, is this a faceless board of likely white powerful people and AI gonna decide? We're gonna decide that what one black man can say to another black man. Are they really gonna decide, be the arbiters of what is and what is not targeted hate speech? And what I and it sounds like even there, like the speech, the appeal, not just the form and the mysterious like manner and mode and process, really is changed by this structure, by capital, really, ultimately, but also just the way, the language we use to do it. It sounds like you felt tactically you couldn't even really argue it on its merit and say, you guys are being ridiculous. This is not hate speech. I'm not doing anything to black people as a as a people negatively. I'm not holding them back. This is absurd. Fuck you.
That's actually what I said. Actually, what I said was like, yo, I didn't know that this was hate speech, because like it's a common, which I do fucking know, right? But it's like I didn't think that
It doesn't have the same power. It doesn't have the same power. You're not a white man calling. It doesn't. It's not that it's not a slur, but scale and power and matters.
Yes, exactly, and who's it coming from? It's like, dude, like I write fucking jokes online. Like that's what I fucking do. Like if I call somebody a coon, like I'm probably like trying to make like that person upset and make other people laugh. Like it's something that's like, partially like humorous. It's like biting humor, right? And I did not expect that like that would be classified as hate speech. And this is the thing is that these algorithms, because they're not being, they're designed by people, but because it's like, well, who is designing it, right? And the fact that this algorithm is just sort of just a reactive, like, response to something, right? It's like they're not, the algorithm is not weighing, well, who said it, right? What was the context, right? It's just like, oh, this is hate speech. Okay. That's fucking fascism, man. Like, I mean, I'm sorry, dude. Like, you are limiting like my fucking free speech. And I know that's a slippery slope, but I mean, I don't have the answers for how you do this any differently because, again, this is a platform that's used by like millions of people, right? But I don't know, man. Like, maybe it starts with something that is not aestheticization. It's something that doesn't rely on like a profit motive, right? For people to use it. Right. So, yeah, man. But I got unbanned. Like, luckily.
Yeah, let's go through that. What is your reaction? How do you figure that? How do you find that out? And what was going through your mind at that point?
Dude, I had my other account because I have an alt. I was just using that. Was getting people to like come to it. I was thinking in my mind, like, dude, this is probably gonna like change like my work. Probably not going to be able to do my podcast. Probably going to have to, I'm already like in the hospital where I haven't done a recording in like weeks. I have patrons that pay for it. I'm probably going to have to refund them. I'm thinking all this shit. And suddenly, Mac, who, I forget his name on Twitter, man. I think he's like, lives in Atlanta. I think it's like good politic guy. Like, shout out to him. He texted me, because I've met him before in Atlanta, and he was like, yo, your account is back, right? And this is like 6 o'clock in the evening. And I was like, get the fuck out of here. And I went back to my account and I was able to log in. The same amount of followers that I had.
Wow.
The same people that I followed. And I was able to post. I don't know what happened. I don't know if my appeal worked. I don't know. Like Glenn Greenwald again is a close friend of mine. And he's reached out to Jack before. I don't know if he did in this situation personally. Apparently, they're good friends as well. And he's gotten people unbanned. I don't know if that happened in this situation. Even like Glenn doesn't know if Jack kind of responded to his appeal on his timeline. Because I don't think that Glenn actually reached out to Jack personally. That day. But yeah, man, I got fucking unbanned, and I got an email that said that after review, we've realized that you did not violate Twitter's rules. Your account has been reinstated. And I was like, I fucking owned. I was like a fucking OG, bro. You know what I mean? I was like, when you come for the king, you better not miss. Like, get the fuck out of here. So I got my account back, and I probably went a little wild. I had to delete some tweets like as soon as I got back on, because I was feeling a little bit rambunctious and vindicated. So I deleted some shit that would have got me banned for sure. So yeah, man, I don't know what happened, dude. I really don't know what happened, to be honest. But I'm kind of grateful. I know it's corny because it's fucking Twitter, but again, I'm in the fucking hospital. This is what I use to connect with people. It's also how I like get work done. I'm not talking about organizing work. I'm not a vanguard and an e-vanguard of anything online. That shit's fake as fuck. Been reading Guy Debord. He talks about the society of the spectacle. People have been hearing me talk about that online. Social media and the little leftist, especially niche subculture that we're in, is a representation of that spectacle. But it does provide material benefits for me. People that say that Twitter is not real life, well, fuck you. I got a job from Twitter. I've got job offers from Twitter. I've gotten like opportunities that have materially improved my life from Twitter. So I'm happy to be back, and I guess I won't be calling people coons anytime soon.
Well, that's what I was going to ask: is what kind of cooling effect has this type of experience had, or do you imagine it would have on you? On the one hand, you still, look at the account, like, all right, he justifiably is feeling himself. He's wilding out a little bit, but you just mentioned, like, oh man, I deleted some tweets, or maybe I won't be calling people that again, even when it's justified. Like, is there still some? Is there still understandably some cooling effect on your language? You think it'll give you any pause, saying this, doing that, criticizing such and such?
Yeah, I mean, like, yes, but at the same time, my background is in writing, so I'm assuming that the algorithm, like, again, these tweets are not being, as far as I know, right? I haven't gone into it, but I can't imagine that these tweets are being reviewed by a single or even a board of individuals, right? So it's an algorithm thing, and as a writer, I'm understand like language and being very specific with language. So the other day, I called for the beheadings and the decapitations and defenestrations of Congress people, and I got away with it because of the way that I fucking wrote it. You know what I mean? So like, it's just being careful, what language I decide to use. And being careful, and I mean, yes, it did have a cooling effect because I'm not going to be calling people coons anytime soon. You know, like even the word nigga, like I'm like, man, are they one day going to be like, you can't use the word nigga? You know, that's another thing that interests me is like, you know, why is it that like nigga's not a problem, right? Like what about nigger, right? With the ER, like why is I've seen people use that? Why is that not a problem? Like Dave Anthony, for example, comedian Dave Anthony, shout out to him. I'm gonna go at the show in a couple weeks.
Nice.
But he when somebody asked him, journalist Owen Higgins asked him, who was asking like, what did he get banned for? And Dave Anthony said he called the gentleman quote a coon. Dave didn't get banned for that, you know. So it's context, I guess, but I'm gonna be more careful because I don't want to get banned again. Yeah, you know, I don't want to get banned from again because I don't want to go back. I don't want to go through the work of rebuilding like an account. Like honestly, I was just about to leave Twitter, and just go to Substack. You know, if I got banned permanently, but here the fuck I am back on Twitter. It's probably bad that I fucking came back, honestly. I'm supposed to be writing after I speak to you, and I'm probably not going to do that. Fuck, I'm supposed to be writing. I have to Substack now for people that don't know. I don't fucking have anything up there yet. But shout out to you, by the way, Elias, for actually fucking like being a writer and committing to writing things that are more than 280 characters. I don't know how you have the willpower to do it. I fucking do not.
That's kind of you to say. You clearly have it in you. Anyone who still uses the 17th century word defenestration can write their ass off.
That's a good word.
It is, and you know some people should be thrown out of windows.
For sure. For sure. They deserve. Oh my god. Yeah. All right. You know what? Let me not go in. But yeah, I have no quarter for these people. Yeah.
No,
I don't think they deserve it online either.
So are you still, you said you probably won't go to writing after. Now that you're on Twitter and you still got the large following, that's a particularly good way to get attention to Substack in addition to the popular podcast. Are you gonna do it, you think? Even though now you're in the hospital, no one will blame you if you're not writing a bunch now. Do you think you're gonna go for it? I mean, if I'm not mistaken, you've got a new gig in the new year, right? With Spooky Magazine as well. I'm assuming you're going to be writing for them.
Yes, I'm going to be writing for them once a month.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm going to be writing more, especially for my Substack, because this whole experience being in the hospital, man, has really revealed to me, and I've been through this, but not directly. My father suffered a stroke about 2 years ago. He's at the same exact hospital I'm at. Yeah, thanks, man. And he passed away. And me and my mom experienced the hell that is the American healthcare system. And I'm experiencing that now personally. And I want my first article to be a little bit funny and a little bit sad about how fucking insane this healthcare system is, because my hospital bill currently is $100,000.
Wow.
I'm going to die like of old age before I'm able to pay that off. right? The Trillbillies is not a gig that's going to afford me, right, the capital, the income to be able to pay that off. This system is unconscionable. It's inhumane. It's disgusting. It's exploitative, not just of the individuals who go through it, but of the healthcare workers as well. And we're seeing this evidently, especially so in a pandemic. And I want that to be like my first piece about my experience here and how completely fucking insane the system is. So I think I would do myself a good service and other people as well of actually trying to write something that's a little bit more lengthy. You know, I think people would enjoy it, and I think people need to see this, man. You know,
I think so as well. I think, not to get ahead or to add any undue pressure. But I think, as you do that, you might end up finding, if it goes well, you enjoy the process. You may end up finding there's a book in it. People have written books on less and on less time under stress than this. So I think yeah, I'm looking forward to reading that and on other stuff. I want to before I don't want to let you go without talking a little bit more about these projects and also and your background. You have a background as a writer. I know you've done organizing as well. We talked about how you came to Twitter a few years ago and a little bit about the podcast. But let's go further back a little bit, Aaron, and talk about just anywhere you want to start it in terms of where you feel it's significant to talk about in terms of your work you've done, even just your how you developed a consciousness you have. But yeah, what did you do before you were getting banned and then owning Twitter?
Yeah. Well, so I'm not like being rambunctious because my personal story is not that interesting. But I went to school I'm from New York, and I went to community college. I mean, I've only ever been to community college in New York, here in Georgia, and I wanted to be a writer because I don't know, I can't describe it. I don't have any sort of childhood stories of like writing things, but I guess like nobody ever taught me how to read. Like seriously, like nobody ever taught me how to read. I just like learned how to read. Wow. And I loved writing, so I went to school to study writing and literature. And I joined this like writing club at my community college, Bourbon Manhattan Community College. I was the president of this like writing club, and was the editor in chief of this literary magazine there. Was going to open mics and shit like that. And I think that the literary world, I'll put it this way, like my biggest inspirations were the beats, like the beat generation, like Kerouac, Ginsberg, you know what I mean? And these people before the hippies, right, they were like radicals, right? They were like the hipsters, like the beats. People know them. They wear the berets, right?
Absolutely.
The whole finger snaps, right? But their politics is what also interested me. The intersection, I guess, with politics is like, I don't know, I guess I was still writing, but I guess like one summer, right before the semester, I went back to school to, I guess, apply for financial aid or something like that. And I was walking up to the school, and a comrade of mine, Andre, was standing outside. He was doing petitioning for the Democratic Party of New York. And I wasn't working. He's like, "You want a job?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want a job." And this was like 2011, maybe. I don't know. I'm out of time, but it was like 2011. It was before Obama's second term.
Okay.
And I started working with the Democratic Party of New York, canvassing, door knocking, petitioning. And that experience is probably like my first foray into not just electoral politics, but radical politics. Because my comrade Andre, who was actually born in the Soviet Union, and in some ways vehemently anti-communist, he always said, he was older than me, and he always said that the first time he saw a hamburger or a cheeseburger was at a McDonald's in America, right? Somewhere in New York. And he was like, "Wow, you guys have a lot of food here." And I mean, people are probably going to I know there are going to be some fucking tankies and some people that really love the Soviet Union, the USSR, and I do too in a lot of ways, but he didn't remember it so fondly. But fortunately, that didn't fuck up my sort of evolution into a communist, because the Soviet Union is not the ideal sort of society or state system that I want to live in.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, working for the Democratic Party, I just saw how inept they were. Like, I saw that they truly didn't believe in anything. I saw the ineffectual strategy of running campaigns based on polling, data, and coverage, and not voter persuasion, and not community engagement, right? And not actually, staying in a community beyond an election, right? And appealing not to the working class, but appealing to like bougie motherfuckers who they can raise money from, right? Which they call their grassroots organizing, right? That's the job I was doing in Georgia right before I quit. The last electoral work that I did was working for the Democratic Party of Georgia, which they said was grassroots organizing, but I was really a fundraiser, going into neighborhoods like Buckhead, which are upper middle class white neighborhoods, and just asking these people for money. And I was like a communist then, and I was still doing that work because it was easy money for me, because I like to talk to people, and I'm black, and they would see my black shining face, and as white people would write me like $500 checks. But I guess, the intersection, I guess, with my writing and my politics, which really started from sort of getting in. I'm realizing this now, man. Getting into the beats and getting into like the more radical elements of the '60s, and working for this party that to me was, like insubstantial. Like, this party is not what's needed right now, and sort of seeing like, well, what lies ahead, and then of course 2016 and Bernie, and then I found these are my politics, right? Like the Sanders campaign, and then moved to Atlanta, Metro Atlanta DSA. I joined DSA, and that's where the writing, I still couldn't figure out how to sort of combine the writing, and I still don't know how yet, the writing and the radical politics. I guess until Twitter, I guess until Twitter. Twitter was a sort of guilty pleasure for years worth of like writer's block, and not working on longer projects. So I got on Twitter. I already had a Twitter account just in 2017, and I got back. I didn't have any followers. Then I got back on it during the 2020 primaries because I wanted to follow Donald Trump. Really, I wanted to follow Trump. That's why I made a Twitter, and comment on the primary. And I guess that's what's the phrase? Like, I guess history is made there, right? Or like that's where everything kind of blew up. Like, I got on Twitter, and people thought it was funny, and I had the Warren Green background, and people couldn't tell if I was ironic or if I was like serious. And I use the word nigga a lot, and I'm a communist, so people thought that was funny and appealing. And man, that's kind of my background. Coming as a writer, exploring the beats and the radical, movement of the '60s, to working for a party that greatly disappointed me, to seeing 2 Obama terms, because I was the first president I voted for, to then seeing the Sanders campaign, to moving down here, and getting more involved with radical organizing, man. And then Twitter, and that's it, I guess.
What
to me talking to you. Sorry if that was long, and like I hope that was okay for people to follow. Yeah.
Of course, no, it was great. Thank you. What do you, if you were to think about it now, Aaron? You mentioned that Twitter it ended up being kind of a little antidote for years of writer's block. Maybe you've already thought about this. If not, I'm curious if you reflect now. What about the platform, the reactions you got from folks, the medium, the restrictions to the characters, any of that, anything else? What do you think about that helped you get stuff out of your head and onto a page, if anything in particular?
I think the brevity. The fact that I've always one of my favorite writers is it's a dichotomy, right? I love Ernest Hemingway, but I also love F. Scott Fitzgerald, right? Hemingway is known as like a minimalist, right? With his whole iceberg theory, that the mass of an iceberg is actually below the water, right? And what you see at the top of it, like, is only a hint of what lies beneath. And if you apply this to writing, it's like, you don't use, $10 words when you use $5 words, right? You don't use like, a multi-clause sentence if you can just write a brief sentence that expresses something similar or even more effective because of its brevity. But I also really liked, F. Scott Fitzgerald, and then later, what is this? God, what am I thinking of? Like people like David Foster Wallace, right? I'm forgetting like Maximism, but I'm forgetting the writing like God, what's the name of it? I'm sorry, I'm blanking right now.
Oh, it's okay.
I'm trying to think of the genre that it's like a literary genre, right? That sort of approaches things in a deconstructive way, deconstructing like modern narratives. And I do not know why I cannot remember it.
Postmodernism?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. I got the postmodernism, yeah. And Twitter was appealing because I could kind of do both, right? Because I was limited to, and I think I got on when they did the 280 characters, because before that it was shorter.
Yeah, right.
Half of that, and I was like, oh, I can like write something really short, and increasingly I would write shorter, like I make shorter posts, but depending on my word usage, I can actually say a lot. And brevity is what really attracted me. And I'm going to be honest with you, I would get stoned, man. And I would just be sitting on the fucking porch, and I'd be like, man, I can't write a poem right now, or like I can't write a story, but I can write a tweet, like, even if I do 15 of them in an hour. And, like, I realized that, like, holy shit, man, like, I'm, like, expressing, like, all these, like, very complex ideas and feelings in this medium that requires, again, brevity. And that's fascinating to me. And, more so that Twitter really does seem to capture the absurdity, especially during quarantine, of our era. Like, you'll see shit trending that, is political, that is social, that's absurd, that's funny. Like, there's all of it, and I can comment on all of it. You know what I mean? In real time as it's happening. I mean, it's a spectacle, of course, again, like the board says, but I find that interesting, right? Like, I am the spectacle, but I'm also the spectator. And I find that really interesting about Twitter. And I'm interested to see where it goes, and what comes out of it. Because I think it's a medium that's really, it's not only cathartic, but it really represents the postmodern insanity of the time that we live in, right? It's like kind of Marxist in a sense, like the revealing of the contradictions. You can see them like run asunder, like on Twitter itself. You know what I mean? It's interesting, man. I do like that platform a lot. I'm not gonna fucking lie. I'm not about Instagram, because Instagram is all about aesthetics. It's all about like feelings of fulfillment and desire and all that shit. I'm not really about that. Also, don't like taking pictures of myself. I do sometimes on Twitter. I don't like Facebook because that shit is reactionary as fuck. So yeah, like that's. I guess that's what it is, man. It's the opportunity. What you can do in brevity is what it is.
No, that's super interesting.
Yeah. What do you like? What do you like about it? Do you feel a similar way about it? I'm curious. As a writer, what you think about Twitter?
Yeah, so I think first, the caveat is I think I'm really bad at it, and I've not put much effort toward it.
I don't follow that. People ask me why I don't follow as many people, because I'm like, people don't have good tweets, so I'm not gonna follow like 1,000 people because I don't have the attention span for it. But no, you're good, man.
No, I appreciate that. I thanks, and I think I definitely have not put over the years, like if I would have put effort into the what's this, like the corporate speak, the branding of it, or like that type of stuff when I was working for these, big companies and stuff, I could have like maybe then actually like gotten some followers or something like that. But it always seemed a little bit, it seemed a lot bit like inauthentic or weird or just like silly. Like I always thought of it as like a way to like link up your stories, like promote the stuff. I never really engaged with it much because I felt like it was just like a marketing tool. But in the last couple of years, I've realized that there are people using it really well, and folks like yourself, where I would, man, I just like you can one, it could like just enrich the day by reading a timeline, which I didn't realize people were doing that. Like they were doing so well, so well, like have such good accounts as yourself, so you could just like enjoy,
their whole timeline.
exactly, enjoy the whole timeline and have it make your day better, but also be qualitative and be substantive, right? And I started seeing people with dark senses of humor, with who like which I relate to, which is like I love being alive. I have so many good things in my life, and I also feel an impending sense of doom every second of my life, and am furious at power structures every second of my life. And I real and I realize, oh, there's people like that on Twitter that express that well. They're talking about how bad things are, but they still work hard and they're hilarious, and that got me interested. That got me interested, and then it became a way I started following a couple more people. Then I saw, oh, you know what? There's a whole bunch of journalists that I wasn't aware of, independent ones, and
Yes.
their content's there. I'm like, oh, that's cool. So then I would spend more and
Yes.
more time on it, and then I just wanted to. Then I realized, you know what? It doesn't have to be this inauthentic marketing tool. Like some people see are having what seem to be um, qualitative conversations and relationships developing through here, and I still feel like I don't know how to engage that. And but I said, you know what? At least I can be a little bit more venti, or a little less cautious. I felt, ironically, I think I get away with some stuff. One, because I don't pop up on anyone's radar on Twitter, at least,
Yes.
right? Like I've got, I could point to any number of stories or videos that I used to make that had gotten like millions of views just because I was with like a corporate outlet. But I like no
Yeah.
people may have watched it, but they don't like know my name or remember me or anything
Yeah.
like that. So I get, and so that then it became a little bit of a honestly of a release valve. And I also started, so I like that about it. That just felt nice, especially when I was getting away from some of the corporate jobs, and then going more into academia as well. I had a thirst to still kind of speak my mind and just vent sometimes. And but then I also like it as a way to start testing out language for myself for future articles, and testing out ideas. Right. So a lot of times, not only will I um, become aware of a story, a topic, or a way of analyzing something from someone I follow on Twitter, and that's useful for my journalism. But then I'll also get to try out language. I say, what would it look like to me on the page if I said this and I took this approach. And so I like it as like a little quasi.
It's like a petri dish.
Yeah, it's like a little petri dish because for me it's quasi public because I don't have that many followers. So I could test something out. Something gets a reaction that I like or don't like, or I like the way it looks on the page. It's very helpful for me to like test out some things in that way. So I guess that's what I like the community I find in terms of my own involvement with it. I think I'm finding myself increasingly just trying to um, test out more and more radical language that I feel better represents the
Yeah.
the politics and the thoughts and the thinking and the words I have inside, but that maybe I had not always let through in different parts of my journalism. And I think it's really useful too because the last 5 years or so, I've been focused more on like long form journalism and then essay writing.
Mm-hmm.
And the essay, just opinion shit, right? So
Yeah.
this is helpful for testing out just opinions, and the language of opinions that I might use later. I like Twitter a lot for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, yeah. You brought up something interesting. Then is that I neglected to bring up that journalism and the fact that journalists on Twitter, it's like not only are you linking to a full piece, but in real time through tweets you are doing reporting.
That's
Right?
right. That's right.
And that's what I found really like. I follow like a lot of like left wing or progressive journalists too, and like others that aren't so. But I follow them for that value because, like, I should read their pieces, and I encourage people to read their pieces and read like longer things. But they're also doing their occupation in this medium.
That's true.
Right? But also too, you can, and a lot of like left-wing journalists do this, you can circumvent, right, corporate media, right, through Twitter, which I find interesting, right, is the circumventing
Absolutely.
of corporate media that a lot of journalists do. I'm thinking of people like Owen Higgins. I'm thinking of people like Ryan Grimm. I'm thinking of people like yourself. Right? You guys are some of my favorite. I mean, Benjamin Dixon as well.
Sure.
Right? Benjamin Dixon's not a blue check guy.
No, that's true.
Benjamin Dixon, he isn't the same sort of like political commentator or pundit realm as someone like Jimmy Dore, right? Like, I'm not comparing you two, but I'm just saying people like Jimmy Dore and people like Benjamin Dixon are able to exist in this social media landscape, whether it's YouTube, and especially we're talking about Twitter, especially Twitter, right? And that's another reason we appreciate it. Like, I don't pretend to be, I wish I was a journalist, like I do, but I don't pretend to be a journalist. I'm a fucking shit poster, right? And I think I'm a little bit too, I'm considering whether or not I should get a blue check when they reopen it. They reopen that shit, but I don't think I should, because I think that blue check also gives people some sort of indication of authority, and maybe my ideas are a little bit I don't know. I don't want people to assume that I am trying to be an authority on anything. This is just the fucking way that I feel, and as an organizer, I defer to the people, right?
Yeah, because it is a class. It's an artificial class distinction that they try to create, I guess, right? And I have a blue check mark that I know. It just came to. I didn't.
Class trader.
Yeah, exactly. I really am, right? And I came. I think somewhat. There was always that tension, like as a working class, person of color from and still in the inner city here in Chicago. There's always like, yeah, let's try to help people as I'm coming up, but also like, oh, you want to like, yeah, they're rooting for you, like try to make a living or something like that. And so there's always like, and pursuant towards that, there's always the thinking of, well, yeah, get a bigger audience, or like, yeah, become, it's cool if so-called official places or give you some type of authority. And there was always a tension as a young journalist coming up, and became more and more prominent in my mind, at least as the older I got and the more I worked. And I think now, yeah, I realize like these that's like the emerge. This is like cultural. This is like Raymond Williams type of shit, I guess. But like the emergent culture, like breaks through again, like internet as an emergent thing, and then co-opted by corporations. But you got people still breaking through again and saying, you know what, we don't care about your blue check system. In fact, we're going to turn that sometimes. If you're a blue check system and you say something that's whack, we're gonna turn it into a badge of shame, really, for you. And yeah, exactly.
Like these people quote tweeting you and making fun of these, like you're laughing, it's like
exactly,
feathering.
exactly. And it's a powerful thing, and it's frankly good. And then, like, I look at that, I'm like, man, I would trade my blue check mark for your 37,000 followers. So I'd say, you know what I mean? Like, it's not right. Like I think it's an interesting thing, but then and I think it's probably helpful. Like, there's probably people that like other journalists that follow me mostly on the basis of that. If I follow them, they'll follow back on the basis of that or whatever, right? Like, it's a little gatekeeping tool that some people might still trust or whatever. But it's definitely not like a popular will, right? It's not a demonstration of like the people getting behind you and your ideas and stuff. And it's yeah, it's an interesting thing. I think I love the way that people with their ideas and their personalities and their advocacy and their strength and their support from actual in like masses of people like yourself are getting through. And I think that's a super popular thing. Now again, it's like I guess if someone who is good and has developed a following gets a blue check, then maybe you can like change it. But anyway, I'm off on a tangent. But I think that's really cool, and I just think it's so cool that like I came back to Twitter like seriously and looking. I'm like, oh yeah, the blue check shit doesn't matter. The only people I really like are like a lot of y'all don't have that. Yeah, and again, the people that give that blue check is the same anonymous, opaque system and forces, I guess, that like decide our fate on disciplinary matters. So it's a weird, right?
Exactly.
It's a weird acquiescence to it.
Same mechanism which banned me.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
You know, I mean, like, because I was looking at apparently, you know, the Twitter is open to the public about its verification system. They're going to reopen again in 2021.
I see.
But apparently, you can respond, and you know, they're trying to engage with the community to see like what sort of verification system this would be.
I see.
You know, there are different categories like, you know, government, media, da da da. And, you know, I guess like I've gotten published before, like once.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when I wrote, so I could like when I used to write. So I guess like I could bring that up, the fact that my words are in a fucking book that you can buy on Amazon. I guess like I can bring up the fact that like I fucking work with Trillbillies, you know, that I have a podcast. But it's like, why do I like? Is it a vanity thing? Like, why do I want that? I'd much rather keep my dolphin, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's an interesting battle, right? It's an interesting decision. I think, maybe it'll give you more protection, and then you'll be able to get your ideas better. I don't know, but I think it's an interesting. Yeah, it is an interesting. It's probably an interesting struggle for like for someone like yourself. I'm sure whatever you do, you're gonna do the best with it. So it doesn't,
I fucking hope so, man.
Yeah.
Hospital.
Well, I'm gonna let you go soon. I want to talk about that. I wanted to mention again. We're gonna have like well, one, this conversation's gone great. So in addition to writing a piece, I think I was thinking in the new year of starting a little conversation series that I could like embed up on my Substack with people that I like talking to. And I think, I'm thinking of making this. I always record my interviews, so I think I'll make this the first episode if that's cool with you.
Oh, shit. Oh, yeah, dude, that's perfectly fine.
Awesome.
I've been recording enough where I'm used to my dumbass voice in the dumb shit. It's actually been a really productive conversation. I actually did enjoy it.
I'm really glad, man. So did I. We definitely kind of keep doing it. I wanted to mention, like we'll have a little intro, well, like up front. I'm gonna say like all your things, but so at the end here, I wanted to mention the fundraiser that was started by friends of yours because you're in the hospital. This is the second time, and you mentioned earlier you've got already $100,000 in bills. I went on there this morning and I see it's stopping taking donations. I wanted to tell people to where they can give money. I mean, people still want to give you money, I'm sure, because they want you to be healthy and safe, and they know you got debt. Is there any way people can still donate, or is that kind of you all stopped that effort?
Well, like Tom Sexton of the Trillbillies, my co-host. As soon as I got in the accident the first time, he hit me up, called me, and was like, "Do you want us to start a GoFundMe?" And I was like doped up on like painkillers, so I was just like, "Yeah, man, like do whatever," you know what I mean? Like this is an immense pain, and he started the GoFundMe, and then I looked the next day, and like before I know it, it's like they're like $17,000. You know what I'm saying? Like so, I shut it down because I felt guilty. Like sort of like I felt like I was milking people. I mean, I definitely do need the money. I need to get a new car. My car's totaled. That 17,000 that I have is a fraction of my bill. Of 100,000. I mean, now it's going to be like 150,000 probably because I'm still fucking here. Yeah. But I just felt like uncomfortable personally. So after the last withdrawal went through, I asked him to shut it down. So he did that. But I realized that people kept asking me, like, they wanted to send me money. Like even if it was like, like money to like get something to eat, or like, I don't know, buy some weed. So I just put so people can check my bio. I'm at Posadas. There's no notes, all be in the show notes or whatever. But I'm at Posadas _Trap God, so people can just
excellent
look at my bio, and I have my Venmo, my Cash App. And,
oh, good, okay.
What I'm using that money for, man, is just to get myself back on my feet. Like I'm not gonna lie and say like I didn't buy myself a new phone. My phone had been smashed. I was using a phone with a broken screen for months. But I'm also gonna buy a new car. I'm also going to save up some money, like to throw back into this medical bill, and also to live with my mom. I want to get myself out of that house. So all the proceeds are being used to, get myself back on my feet, man. Especially with the car, because I live in Atlanta. I live in Georgia. I cannot get around. I've lived here for 2 years without a car, and I cannot imagine going back to not having a vehicle. So I appreciate that from everybody for helping me facilitate that, and also helping me get rid of some debt, man. Not just medical debt, but I got debt with school and shit. You know what I mean? I'll be able to cover that and give myself a fresh start, and get myself back on my feet. And I appreciate that. But yeah, if people want to donate, they can. But again, like I don't like asking people for anything, man.
I hear you.
I like to give more than ask. So yeah.
Well, I think everyone that's giving is probably giving you because they feel that they've received a lot from you, and also I think mutual aid is a really good thing. I think
Yes.
we're conditioned to we're conditioned to think that this is like a weird thing or something, right? Like,
Yes.
no, yeah, like the only people who deserve to have money are the people who inherited hundreds of millions. That's our conditioning, and right, like that's absurd. Like mutual aid is awesome, and I think that's how if we operated that way in everything in life, we might be a little closer to better off. So I think that's really cool. I think I'll definitely I encourage people to do that. I think people if folks are tired of the same voices. If folks are tired of like just bad things out there, bad information, bad analysis, boring shit, like you, yeah, to say like if exactly if you're opposed to that, but you never support better voices and analysis and the people behind them, then you can't complain that much. So anyone who can, I think it's a good thing to support, whether it's through Patreon, whether it's through acute need is certainly a legitimate reason, right? Like I think people should go to your Patreon, as well, and just become members and do that just to support your work. But acute need is a very very legitimate thing. So let's definitely let people know where they can find your podcasting. We got a Time of Monsters. We got Trillbillies. You're going to be working for with Spooky Magazine soon. Let people know all the things. I'll have this in the notes for sure. But let people know all of the places they can follow all your awesome work, your great thoughts. I mean, listen, I was up last night till like 2 in the morning, and it's a wasteland and it's a boring place if I can't find amazing, hilarious, poignant thoughts from people like you that are also up that late.
Appreciate you, man. For like one, first of all, like this is the first like thing that I've done since I've been in the hospital. Like I even asked my mom to bring my fucking mic,
Wow.
To the hospital so I could do some recording, but like she persuaded me, encouraged me not to do that, and said I need a rest. Also, I'm fortunate I've healed enough to be able to talk to you.
That's great.
Because being that my lung had collapsed, it was very short of breath, so I couldn't have conversations for longer than 10 minutes.
Wow.
So as first and foremost, man, I just want to say I really appreciate this conversation and your platform as well, Elias. And you're a comrade, man. I knew that there'd be some kinship, man. Like as soon as you hit me up and we started chatting. So again, I appreciate it. And if people want to hit me up, follow my shit. Obviously, on Twitter, I'm at Posadas_TrapGD, Posadas Trap Guide. But definitely shout out to the Trillbillies. They brought me on about a month ago. Because they wanted to broaden their influence in the South and obviously diversify. Like I am the latest diversity hire of the Trillbillies Workers Party. But no, seriously, the three T's and I, Tanya, Tom, and Terrence, we really have every time I'm on that show, before I even joined as official member, it's always a good fucking time, man. It's always hilarious. So people can go to at the Trillbillies Workers Party on Patreon. It's patreon.com/Trillbillies Workers Party. Trillbillies Workers Party, they can go there to support some good Southern solidarity. For my own podcast, The Time of Monsters, people can go to patreon.com/AtomPod, ATOM Pod, which is AtomPod is just sort of similar to, I guess, what you want to do with your project, man, where it's sort of deep conversations with individuals. I am covering our descent into barbarism and the radical left struggle against it. We're definitely hurtling towards something large and terrible, as I always say, and the only way out is through, together, So I'm talking to journalists, activists, and activists, and academics, right? And people on left Twitter too about some of the work that they've been doing, which I'm really, really appreciative to have that platform, man, and talk to people that I've been listening to or following for years. Like it's been insane. I got unfortunately, I got stuck in the hospital while we were still continuing production, but I have I think at least 7 or 8 episodes up with folks like Glenn Greenwald, Matt Christman, Malika Jabali, Rob Rousseau, people that people will know. So they can check that out, and we'll be back soon. As soon as I get out of the hospital, we'll be back to producing content. And I guess for writing, I got a Substack, but I'm not going to really comment on that. People can. When I'm finished writing my first piece, people will know. But I just got a gig with Spooky Mag, which is a radical kind of. I guess people can think of it as the anti-capitalist McSweeney's. You know, where it's jokey, but it's also radical. And I'm going to be writing a piece a month for them. And their work is themed, right, every month. So I'll be coming in February with a piece on the theme of food and travel. So I'm thinking about how to kind of take a bizarre, sort of maybe postmodern but radical anti-capitalist bent with the piece I'm working on. So that's pretty much it, man. I'm just trying to I'm just trying to get my voice out there, not just my voice, but also my writing, because I think I might have shit to say, and I think people might like it, and I want to make people laugh, you know, and I want to make people not feel so alone, you know, the way I felt listening to podcasts and reading people's work, including your work, man, that I've recently got into. So, you know, that's pretty much it, man. I just want people to know that we're not alone, man, and there are folks out there producing content for people to not feel so alone.